Ah, the Drake line of equipment. How wonderful it is to hear the old Drake sound. This is the Drake R-4C, and next to it is the speaker MS4. Good matching speaker for this R-4C. Strictly amateur radio, band cover radios. So 10, 15, 20, 40, and 80. But by adding additional crystals, you could expand the receive range of this radio. Certainly a classic, known at the time as the poor man's Collins S line. This and the T4XC, which was its mate on the transmit side, made up a very effective combination for covering the amateur bands. A lot has been written about the Drake line, and specifically about the R4 line of receivers. The R-4C, a triple conversion receiver, was supposedly the pinnacle of achievement for receivers in the 1970s. However, it did lack several components to make it a super special receiver. The filtering was not great, and later on, companies came out with modifications for the Drake R4, especially the C, to make it a very, very competitive radio and allow it to function way above its initial abilities when it first came from the factory. So when I first got this radio, that CW note was more like a and that's the way it sounded. And so immediately knew that there was a little bit of AC getting into the audio. And any of these old radios really need to be looked at carefully before you plug them in and turn them on. One of the things you want to look at is the capacitors, and this one has a very obvious pair of electrolytic caps that are, when they get old, will dry up, and then they'll start to leak. And that can cause worse problems later on. So one of the first things you want to do is replace the electrolytic capacitors. And this one has, like all the old radios, had multiple caps in a can, and the can was then soldered into the radio underneath with the wires connected to it. Pretty straightforward, easy to do, and there are some companies that make replacements, that is capacitors that are already in place and need only be dropped into the footprint of the radio that you have to freshen up those capacitors and make the radio sound like it should sound, with good filtering. The company I bought these from, called Hayseed Hamfest, just great people to work with. They've been refurbishing radios with their parts for many years, and I'm glad they put their name on the can, because I'm happy to leave it on there, showing that they are the makers of this. Several other people make boards that will replace these. You can also do it using discrete capacitor components if you wish, but I think they look really nice. You can even take the name, little green name tags off here, and it'll look just like the original caps, except a lot shinier and newer. So they're going to stick out anyway. But I think you will enjoy your radio a lot more with new capacitors. So the Drake line was primarily built for sideband and for CW. The later radios had better selectivity for CW, but they could copy AM and do a fairly good job. broadcast. You could listen to some foreign broadcasts with it. But primarily sideband was its main reason for being. People would love to look at the blue-green screen. I don't know how it's coming out in video. We'll have a look, but it's got a very mellow kind of green display on the tuning knob, above the tuning knob, and you can see how the concentric tuning circles work with the frequencies moving slower in the back than in the front. So very nice feel to the tuning as well. Otherwise, the ability to go between lower sideband, upper sideband, and you could also use this radio for RTTY, although most people have not done that. Pre-selector, again, it's all manual, so you adjust the pre-selector for the band you're on and tweak it as you change frequency. So none of this automatic tuning stuff on the receive side. And as you can see, the band's covered, basically 80 through 10 meters. Just a quick note about recapping, although this is not a recapping video. You'll see that the two caps that have been replaced are fairly easy to get to. So it's pretty straightforward getting in here and changing the capacitors, the two electrolytic cans. One issue that you're going to find is the old can, if you look under here, had a tab that was blocked by the wafer of this switch. Almost impossible to get out. So you have to cut that or lever it up and down and snap it off on the old cap, and that will avoid having to take the front panel off of the radio. Otherwise, very, very easy to recap this R-4C.